888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. An ESPN sportscaster has been taken off sideline reporting duties after a mic has her, she's white, criticizing the assignment that a black reporter got, claiming that the black reporter only got that assignment because of quote-unquote diversity. Now, this is a left-wing person, all about diversity, all about wokeness, cheesed off because somebody who is a person of color got an assignment that she wanted. Shows you how phony they are when they talk about diversity. They're all about diversity until it threatens their own job. Canada is seeking compensation from American taxpayers over Biden's cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline. The National Education Association says they're going to defend members who want to promote critical race theory. You know, kids can't read, write, and compute at grade level. We're way behind compared to our European and Asian counterparts, but I tell you what, we're the leaders on critical race theory. New York City experiencing a wave of crime, and the Democrat who won the Democrat primary did so on a law and order platform. More than 180 people around the country died gun violence over the July 4 holiday weekend. Group of shoplifters are looting Neiman Marcus, broad daylight. Hey, why should I loot at the dollar store when I can go to Neiman Marcus? After all, looting is pretty much free in California. And we're going to be speaking with a prominent figure in the move to recall the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. The recall election is going to take place on September 14. Whether he gets recalled is another issue, and if so, who replaces him will be another issue. As you know, I'm giving it some consideration, strong consideration. Don't know what I'm going to do just yet, but I'm giving it some consideration. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. By the way, want to get your thoughts. I've been getting your thoughts on whether or not I ought to throw my fro into this recall election. Let me know what you think. LarryAElder@gmail.com. Larry A. What are you laughing at, Mr. McConnell? LarryAElder @gmail.com. Gavin Newsom can't throw his fro in, can he? Absolutely not. I got that up on him. He can outraise. He can out-fundraise. He can outspend. There's a surplus here of around $40 billion. He claims it's $80 billion. And already he's promising everybody who has not paid their rent another whole year not to pay rent. I can't do that. But he can't throw his fro in the race. All right. Let me start with this. Have you had your vaccine? There's a gentleman I work with who, unlike the rest of us, is still wearing a mask. And I asked him why. He said he hasn't been vaccinated yet. And so he's trying to protect himself. Because those of us, if the science is accurate, those of us who have been vaccinated can't give him anything, can't give other people anything, but presumably we could give him something. So he's wearing it to protect himself. And I said, well, why haven't you gotten vaccinated? And he said, I just don't trust it. It's too fast. It's and I posted something, did a video about Barack Obama denouncing people that push conspiracy theories. And I posted a picture of Barack Obama with a smiling Louis Farrakhan, the head of the Nation of Islam, who not only has made all sorts of horrific comments about Jews and about Judaism, but he also felt that the coronavirus vaccine, if it's warp speed, anything warp speed is warped, and he doesn't trust it. And somebody actually commented below, Larry, this is the only time I've ever agreed with Louis Farrakhan. So, regarding the speed at which this vaccine was created, there are a lot of people who agree with that. So, the reason I mention that is I asked my friend, how would you like getting a knock on the door from somebody in the Biden administration? Listen to President Joe Biden.
In today's briefing, we discussed how our administration is going to devote the remainder of the summer to a special focus on 5 ways to make gains in getting those of you who are unvaccinated vaccinated. Because here's the deal. We are continuing to wind down the mass vaccination sites that did so much in the spring to rapidly vaccinate those eager to get their first shot and their second shot, for that matter, if they needed a second. Now we need to go to community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood, and oftentimes door to door, literally knocking on doors.
What? Knocking on doors to find out whether or not you've been vaccinated. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Triple 971 SAGE. Give me your reaction to getting a knock on the door from somebody from the Biden administration making sure you've been vaccinated. Does anybody not know whether or not they want to be vaccinated at this point? Does anybody not know how to get it done? Does anybody not know about the pros and cons? And they're going to knock on your door, especially in the black community, because a disproportionately high percentage of blacks have not been vaccinated. And Joe Biden says the reason for that is because of the bad experience with the Tuskegee Airmen. He meant the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, had nothing to do with the airmen, but you know, Joe Biden. Knocking on doors, going door to door. And you open the door and you say, no, I have not been vaccinated, don't want to be vaccinated, get out of my face. Then what? Then what? You get a ticket? You get a scolding, you get a phone call, then what? Are you kidding me? 888-971 SAGE. Is it even legal?
To get help to the remaining people protected from the virus.
To get help from the remaining people protected from the virus. Are you kidding me?
Look.
You know what? You know what? How far away is this from going door to door to make sure you don't have a so-called assault weapon? Going door to door to make sure you don't have a firearm that's not registered properly. People on the left, are you okay with this? When I was in college in the 70s, it was the left that was anti-government, anti-intrusion, anti-big government. What happened? What happened? Going door to door to make sure you've been vaccinated?
Equity, equality, it remains at the heart of our responsibility of ensuring the communities that are the hardest hit by the virus have the information and
have the information. They don't have the information. Well, what did Joe Biden say? Well, the reason a lot of people have not been vaccinated who are black is because they don't have access to the internet.
Access to get vaccinated.
Which Al Gore invented.
So, as we shift from these centralized mass vaccination sites where we're doing thousands of people a day, we're going to put even more emphasis on getting vaccinated in your community, close to home, conveniently, and a location you're already familiar with.
What are you going to do? Give them a shot right there on the steps? And then come back a couple of weeks later and make sure they have the second shot? What is this?
By the end of the week, the United States will be nearing 160 million people fully vaccinated, which the president will touch on today as well, which is critically important as fully vaccinated people are protected against the Delta variant. He will also stress how the administration will continue its effort to work with governors, local leaders, and across the public and private sector to get more Americans vaccinated by making vaccines available in more healthcare settings and respond to hotspots. The president will outline 5 areas his team is focused on to get more Americans vaccinated. 1, targeted community by community door-to-door outreach to get remaining Americans vaccinated by
door-to-door outreach.
Ensuring they have the information they need on how both
to make sure they have the information they need. No TV, no radio, no internet. These are just hermits. We're going door to door because they're clueless.
And accessible the vaccine is. 2, a renewed emphasis on getting the vaccines to more primary care doctors and physicians, something that we've seen as a very successful tactic with reaching groups with lower vaccination rates in the past few months.
I'm Larry Elder. Let me know what you think.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show. Folks, I'm talking to my friend Jenna Ellis, and I apologize, but the conversation has become substantive. Let's go back. What is the moral basis of our Constitution? That's the title of your book.
Yes.
It is really vital that people understand this. Can you make that case in short order?
Yeah, so our Declaration of Independence gives us the worldview statement that our founders unanimously recognized that when governments are abridging and infringing upon our rights that are God-given, then we appeal to the highest source of moral law, which is God himself. He is the personification of truth. And they said unanimously in the Declaration that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They went on to say that governments are instituted among men only to protect and preserve those rights. And so they then gave the mandate to the Constitutional Convention. With the Articles of Confederation were not working. The Constitutional Convention derived how can we best implement a system of government whose mandate is to protect and preserve our rights that are God-given, because our rights do not come from government, they come from God. It's the government's job to protect and preserve those rights. That's why we have the First Amendment, and all of our Bill of Rights is actually a bill of protections. Congress, in case you weren't clear that you have a limited role, these are the things and the rights that are God-given that governments most frequently infringe on. So like what we're doing right now, our First Amendment speaking together about truth, that's freedom of speech, freedom of association, free exercise of religion, those are not given by the government. It is obligated by the Constitution that our government protects those rights.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
That Americans are recognizing that we cannot sit back. We can't say we're comfortable in the four walls of our church. We have to be active participants in civil society. And this whole myth of separation of church and state, by the way, is something that Christians should absolutely not be lied to about, and they should not perpetuate that myth. Thomas Jefferson only meant that the authorities that are established are different. They're separate. That doesn't mean, just like, the family authority is very different from civil government authority. That's all that he meant by that. It doesn't mean that Christians can abdicate our role and responsibility to be moral arbiters of truth within the context of civil society, because what our founders recognized is that the greatest system of government would be predicated on the truth of the eternal, immutable Word of God, which is that truth is self-evident, and that the mandate for the Constitution is that we can only have a government according to the truth of the Word of God. And that's why we are a Christian nation.
And you write about this in your book. I don't remember
Yes.
the title. Tell my audience.
The legal basis for a moral constitution.
The legal basis for a moral constitution. In other words, you don't just say, hey, this is what the Word of God says, because there are people in America who say, I don't care what the Word of God says. I'm not a Christian. The Constitution and our laws and our system of government are, you say, inextricably intertwined with morality. There's no such thing as somehow separating church and state on that level.
Right. And you can make the argument for America being a Christian nation based solely on our founding documents and our Constitution itself.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Hey, Larry, this is Desiree from Texas. I just wanted to comment on that guy, Michael from Bay Area. What a damn moron. I'm sorry. I almost had to turn it off so I didn't absorb his stupidity. But I got to say, you handled that really well. You were very, very gracious to him. But that is classic liberal behavior, to try to talk over you and try to keep you from getting the point out. That is classic liberal behavior, to try to shut you down. I'm so sick of these people. I'm so freaking sick of it. I'm sick of it. They're the bigots. They're the ones who can't handle somebody having a different opinion. They are the ones with the problem, not us.
Dumb as a bag of hair.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Now, you could be paying a whole lot less for your home every month. That really is a true statement, because there are still some loan programs with rates in the twos, but they won't be this low forever. So you've got to take action right now. Call American Financing, America's home for home loans. Take advantage of a free, no-obligation mortgage review and be one step closer to hundreds, maybe even $1,000 in monthly savings. It really is possible, because their expert mortgage consultants look at your entire financial picture, finding every way to help you save. You could even postpone 2 mortgage payments. So, what are you waiting for? It takes as little as 10 minutes to start, and you can pre-qualify for free by calling 866-886-2026. That's 866-886-2026. Or visit AmericanFinancing.net. That's AmericanFinancing.net. American Financing, NMLS 18233, NMLS, ConsumerAccess.org. Barrett is in Houston, Texas. Barrett, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling. I appreciate it.
Run, Larry, run. I sent you a letter. We backed you. I'm in Houston now, but I'll move back to California if you're the governor. But I wanted to say something for this knocking on the doors. In order for them to knock on the door, that means they have to know that you haven't had the shot. That means that they're in your private records, and they're telling your neighbors you haven't had the shot. All of that is against the law. Now, Jennifer Bridges, if I may say something for her, she's fighting for all of us, not just for the healthcare workers at Houston Methodist Hospital and her lawsuit with the Woodfield law firm. She is the Rosa Parks of our medical liberty, and she's fighting for us. Can I please say a word for her GoFundMe page?
Sure, go ahead.
Because she's fighting for all of us, not just for the healthcare workers that have been fired, because because we are supposed to have the right to decide what goes in our bloodstream, and the government is saying, and the hospital is saying, that we don't have the right to decide. This is the ultimate tyranny, don't you think, Larry?
Absolutely, Barrett. What's her page?
The GoFundMe page is for Jennifer Bridges, nurse Jennifer Bridges of Houston Methodist Hospital, and she's up to I think 160,000, but she needs $500,000. But she needs a lot more than that, because
right.
She deserves it. She is the Rosa Parks of medical liberty, and I think that we should all chip in something for her, Larry.
Now,
we back you. Please, Larry, please run for governor of California.
Well, I will probably have something to say about that early next week. But, Barry, let me get back to this knock on the door thing. You're suggesting that they're using private medical records to target the houses to knock on.
Yeah, they have areas that have least vaccinated. In other words, the ones that are the most freedom-minded people who decide what. Now the so-called vaccine is not a vaccine, and it weakens your immune system. If you catch corona, your immune system is resistant to corona for up to 15 years or more. But if you take the shot, it damages your immune system. The whole thing is a hoax but in the opinion of a lot of very high.
Well, Barrett, I don't want to get into whether or not the vaccine is a hoax, whether or not it works or doesn't work, or how effective it is. What I'm concerned about is this business of knocking on doors of people they suspect haven't had a vaccine. What you're suggesting is somehow they have access to your medical records to determine that you've not gotten a vaccine and that you've been targeted. My suspicion is they're going to say, oh, no, we're just going door to door and knocking on doors. We don't know whether someone's had it or not, and either way, what is this? Pam is in Huntington Beach, California. Pam, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
Hi, I'm really tired of this intrusion on our privacy. I'm 73 years old, and I live in a community of almost all over 60. I've had my vaccine, but I know some of them haven't, and that's their business. And if someone comes to my door and asks that question, I'm going to tell them to get out of this community, or I'm calling the cops, and they'll be here in 3 minutes for me.
Well, Pam, thank you very much. I'm not sure they'd be that fast for me. Pam, thank you so much for the call. Back to Joe Biden. Here's what he said about this.
In today's briefing, we discussed how our administration is going to devote the remainder of the summer to a special focus on 5 ways to make gains in getting those of you who are unvaccinated vaccinated. Because here's the deal. We are continuing to wind down the mass vaccination sites that did so much in the spring to rapidly vaccinate those eager to get their first shot and their second shot, for that matter, if they needed a second. Now we need to go to community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood, and oftentimes door to door, literally knocking on doors to get help to the remaining people protected from the virus.
Wow. What he's saying is that anybody who has not yet gotten the virus is doing so because they're too stupid to realize it might be beneficial. Not because they don't want to. Not because perhaps their doctor has advised them not to. I told you about Mrs. Jeffries, my mom's best friend. She's now 96. And she told me she wasn't going to get vaccinated. That the last time she had a common flu shot, she had an adverse reaction to it, and she was not confident. And she, by the way, is a nurse, registered nurse, retired now, obviously. She said she was not sure that they had enough time to develop it properly. But she changed her mind and got it. Now, she rarely leaves the house, but somehow, some way, she was able to figure out how to get the shot, where to go to get it. What Joe Biden is saying, once again, is that people are too stupid to figure out how to get a shot, just like people are too stupid to figure out how to get voter ID. The reason black businesses don't do quite as well, studies show black business people are just as capable as white business people, he said. Studies show that. But they just don't have access to lawyers and to accountants. How condescending, how insulting. Is it even legal? 888-971-SAGE. Mike's in Menifee, California. Mike, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling. I appreciate it.
Yeah, hi, Larry.
Mike?
I have the answer for when they knock on your door.
I'm listening.
You stick out your right hand and you say Heil Hitler to them.
Mike, thank you very much for the call. That's what this is. That's what this is. Where are people on the left? Where's the ACLU? Hello, ACLU? ACLU's AWOL in the Second Amendment, but how about this? 888-971-SAGE. I am Larry Elder.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
So critical race theory actually is indoctrinating our children to tell them that if you are white, you are an oppressor. You are innately designed to be racist. And if you are black, you are oppressed. In other words, you will never have the opportunities that the white person has. And the little boy or the little girl that's sitting beside you in your classroom is the reason why. This is why it's such a divisive, and in itself, it's completely racist.
Well, it is. I mean, that's what I love about people who scream racism are often guilty of the racism themselves. I mean, this is it's the quintessential projection. How can you condemn children who've done nothing wrong? How do you make victims and oppressors out of kids in elementary school?
Well, this is what fired me up. This is what got me initially so upset, is that, you know, I watch my 10-year-old son play football with little boys from every race, from every walk of life, every religion. And I watch them as they help each other up on the field when they get knocked down. I watch them give each other high fives. I watch them do chest bumps, right? They are not thinking, oh, you're black, so I can't touch you, or, oh, you're less than me. Guess what? They've got blacks, whites, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Jews. They're all playing together, and they're all respecting each other, and they're all caring for each other. Why would you put such a divisive theory or ideology into a school system?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
Jews wrote half of the most popular Christmas songs. I mean, statistically, this is not It's just a fact. And even though it was not their religious holiday, it was their national holiday. Christmas was a unifying thing for Americans till the left crapped on Christmas and changed Christmas party to holiday party, and Christmas vacation to holiday vacation, and Merry Christmas to Happy Holidays. And then, as usual, they deny they did it. Just like now, they deny that they ever called for the defunding of police. Every leftist lies or they wouldn't be a leftist. Liberals lie and tell truth. Conservatives lie and tell truth. But leftists all lie. They lie with the ease with which they speak. We make war on Christmas? How laughable. We called for the defunding of police? What, are you out of your minds? I read to you that last week. That's the new thing. We never said defund the police. Yeah, that's right. We changed everything with the word Christmas into holiday, but hey, there's no war on Christmas. And people believe it. For better and worse, the United States really is one of a kind. And he speaks about America, as I have often, as based on an idea. It's the point. It's not an ethnic country. It's an idea. You have the American idea, you are American. That's the way it is. We don't care about your ethnicity, believe it or not.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Hugh Hewitt for...
Larry, I just wanted to say I read an article this morning where a gentleman is endorsing you for governor of California. It's the first time I've heard that, and I mean, it was like Christmas morning. So excited, so enthused. Here in California, we would just love to have you as governor, Larry. I mean, it would just be amazing. I know you don't need this in your life. It's obviously a lot for you and your family to have to go through in this climate, but oh my goodness, it's somebody that like we could really get behind.
Hey, good morning, Larry. This is Ray from the Torrance area. You keep it short and sweet, man. We would love to see your name on the ballot for the California recall election. We would love to see you as our next governor, and you got my vote, man. We've been sinking for so long. We need somebody to build us back up, and we need somebody to lead us back to where we used to be 20, 30 years ago, you know. But, yeah, man, just you got my vote.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Secrets out. People are abandoning their overpriced wireless carriers, flocking over to Pure Talk for the same coverage, but at a fraction of the price. If you're with Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, switching to Pure Talk could save your family over $800 a year. And switching is so easy. You can keep your phone, keep your number, or get huge discounts on all the latest iPhones and Androids. I got a new iPhone SE, and I can tell you the service is fantastic. Plus, right now, get unlimited talk, text, and 6 gigs of data, all for just $30 a month. And if you go over data, they do not charge you for it. There's a reason Pure Talk is the highest rated wireless company by Consumer Affairs, why they're the preferred wireless partner of AMAC. Friends, it is time to start saving money. So from your cell phone, do me a favor. Dial pound 250 and say Larry Elder. You're going to save an additional $50 off your first month. That's pound 250, say Larry Elder, pound 250 and say Larry Elder. I don't remember whether or not I've told you this story before regarding my running for governor, possibly. And again, I wanted your thoughts. Just go to larryaelder@gmail.com. Let me know what you think, larryaelder@gmail.com. As you know, my father, high school dropout, left school in the 8th grade, became a Pullman porter on the trains, and they were the largest private employer of blacks in those days. And my dad, born in Athens, Georgia, came out to California one day on a run and couldn't believe how sunny it was. He thought the people seemed friendlier. And he made a mental note that maybe someday I might relocate to California. I mean, who does that from the deep Jim Crow South. Pearl Harbor, my dad joined the Marines, and he was in charge of the cooking facilities for the quote-unquote colored soldiers, close quote. I think I said quote-unquote twice. And he goes back to Chattanooga, where he met and married my mom. And he walked around, he told me, for 2 or 3 days to get him a job as a short order cook. Far less complicated than anything he did in the military. And nobody gave him a job and said, we don't hire N-words to his face. Goes to an unemployment office. The lady says, you went through the wrong door. My dad goes out to the hall, sees colored only, goes to that door to the very same lady who sent him out. My dad came home and said, this is BS. I'm going to California. I'm going to get me a job as a cook, and I will send for you in a couple of days. So he comes out, walks around, and he's told, you don't have references. To which my dad said, I need references to make ham and eggs? So he was treated the same way in L.A. as he was in Chattanooga. They were just a little more polite about it in L.A. Went to an unemployment office, only one door this time. Lady said, I don't have anything. My dad said, what time do you open? She said, 8, 8:30. What time do you close? 5. My dad said, I'll be here at 8:30. I'll be here at 5 till you find something. My dad literally sat in that office for a full day and then half of another day until the lady called him up and said, I think I have something. I'm not sure if you're going to want it. My dad said, of course I'm going to want it. What is it? She said, it's a job at Nabisco brand bread. You'll be cleaning toilets. My dad said, fine. Did that for 10 years. Took a second full-time job at a company called Barbara Ann Bread. This morning I had an interview with somebody who's a native Californian, and he'd never heard of Barbara Ann Bread. If you Google Barbara Ann Bread and then just hit the image, you'll see the trucks that used to, you see them around the city all the time. But through a connection at Nabisco, he was able to hook up and get him a job full-time also with this company cleaning toilets. So my dad had 2 full-time jobs cleaning toilets. And he had a stay-at-home wife, my mom, who raised 3 children until the youngest, Dennis, was in middle school. And my dad, on that salary, moved us uptown to South Central Los Angeles. When I say uptown, we're the second black family in the neighborhood. And the house that my dad bought, I just checked with Zillow, it is now $600,000. Can you imagine somebody working 3 jobs as a janitor, being able to save up the down payment to buy a $600,000 house? It's impossible. The route that my dad took that delivered us to the middle class is foreclosed now. The cost of housing, astronomical. It's supply and demand. House goes on the market out here. Got a bunch of people looking for it because they're not building enough houses because of all the environmental rules and regulations. Now, the doctors who formulated Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, each of which are 100% drug-free to deal with pain from a separate metabolic pathway. It is why over 70% of those who ordered the 3-week quick start still discounted to only $19.95. Order it again. It's less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. After that, we're talking about less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. Just go to relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com, or call 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384.
Streaming on Salem Now.
218 out with him. Headed for the house. He's got a hostage.
You believe in God, Chip? Why does a kid die and drug dealer get off scot-free?
Well, the only answer to that is there isn't a God.
You have a choice. You can either let the darkness overtake you, or you can be a bearer of the light.
So just think of it as calling for backup.
Officer down, officer down.
You're the one God's called to be a shepherd.
Keeper, do you know who I am?
You are the author?
I am.
I don't know you.
Keeper, it's your son.
Hurry it up! Time is short.
stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Amanda Milius, is the deep state real?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I sat in the room with it, and the scary thing is, and this is the thing that I'm always harping about, which is like I feel like we know the careers are going to be deep state, right? We know
these are the non-political appointees, the career
99% of
bureaucrats.
The building. Yeah, and the thing that I was shocked about, I talked about this the other day, is that I'd get in the room with only political appointees, and I'd be like, okay, we're amongst friends, right? How are we going to get this done? How are we going to make sure we execute the White House's agenda here? And they would look at you like you had three heads, and they'd be like, oh no, we're going to have to figure out a way to tap down their expectations, because we can't go to NATO and tell them to pay their fair share.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
It was the prayers of so many Christians that I could feel. And you're exactly right about the spiritual battle playing out. And I saw it each and every day. Like when the president got COVID-19, you'll remember they dubbed the Amy Coney Barrett nomination a super spreader event.
Yes.
Well, what some people haven't pieced together is Franklin Graham was there that day. They were doing the big prayer march through Washington, and Franklin Graham and some of the greatest pastors of our time were in the White House meeting with the president. So you have COVID-19, the invisible enemy, lurking in this super spreader event, while you have these pastors who represent all things good and Christians praying through DC. And it was just such a clear
By the end of the week, the United States will be nearing 160 million people fully vaccinated, which the president will touch on today as well, which is critically important as fully vaccinated people are protected against the Delta variant. He will also stress how the administration will continue its effort to work with governors, local leaders, and across the public and private sector to get more Americans vaccinated by making vaccines available in more healthcare settings and respond to hotspots. The president will outline 5 areas his team is focused on to get more Americans vaccinated. 1, targeted community-by-community door-to-door outreach.
In today's briefing, we discussed how our administration is going to devote the remainder of the summer to a special focus on 5 ways to make gains in getting those of you who are unvaccinated vaccinated. Because here's the deal. We are continuing to wind down the mass vaccination sites that did so much in the spring to rapidly vaccinate those eager to get their first shot, and their second shot for that matter, if they needed a second. Now we need to go to community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood, and oftentimes door to door, literally.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Now, as you know, my friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everybody get the best sleep of his or her life. Didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike also created the new Giza Dream bed sheet. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule, which may, I repeat, may get even busier. Mike has found the world's best cotton. It's called Giza, ultra soft, breathable, but extremely durable. And the sheets come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. So go to mypillow.com. You get a 2-for-1 plus low price plus free shipping. Click on the radio listener square and use promo code Larry. You're not only going to find this amazing product, but also deep discounts on all the MyPillow products, including but not limited to the MyPillow mattress topper, the MyPillow towel set, and so much more. So call 1-800-890-1843. Be sure and use promo code Larry. That's 1-800-890-1843. And again, be sure and use promo code Larry, or do it by going online, mypillow.com. Make sure you use promo code Larry, mypillow.com. Kathy is in Texas. Kathy, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
What I told them is I am one of those physicians that does happen to believe that the shots are harmful. And I think for that reason, they're going to specifically target the minority areas first and lower income areas. And they've already in Dallas, for example, bused lower income students in mass to areas where they can be vaccinated. Of course, with parental permission, they say, but you've got a lot of peer pressure with the kids to get the shot. And personally, I don't think kids should be getting these at all. So I am very concerned about that and concerned about the immunity because of some other things that I do know of and that I'm aware of.
Kathy, I've heard a lot of doctors say that the shot might even be dangerous for people who are, say, younger than the age of 12.
Yeah, I mean they've reported myocarditis in these younger men and boys, and I think it can be, and we really don't know. It's an experimental thing, and we really don't know. But some of what I do know about it doesn't set well with me at all. And so, especially those people that have had COVID and have antibody levels, I think it can be particularly harmful to them in the more immediate time frame. But then down the road, the immune response that we might get might be overwhelming when exposed to a coronavirus again. So I don't know.
Kathy,
you know Bill Gates, he's behind things like this.
Right.
So he wants population control. So I ultimately don't have a lot of trust in what they're doing here.
Kathy, what is your area specialty?
I'm really a gynecologist by training, practicing more functional medicine now. So
Kathy, when your patients have asked you your opinion about the coronavirus vaccine, are you honest about what you think?
Yes, I am. But I'm shocked at the number of patients who have not asked me, and I really don't understand that. They're just going along with the recommendations, almost just kind of blindlessly following what the government is recommending. And I've had just a handful of people actually ask me what they think they should do, and I've told them to wait till we know more. And then as I've known more, I've shared it with anybody who asked me. I'm not afraid to share it. I'm going to give my opinion, and I'm going to give my best judgment opinion. And I have some concerns about it, a lot of concerns.
So you don't tell your patients unless they ask you whether or not you've been vaccinated. I'm assuming you've not been.
I actually did have COVID in mid-March, so absolutely not going to get a vaccine, but we had already chosen not to, even at that point. That I have used a lot of these modalities, a lot of these protocols. Even my husband has a lot of chronic health conditions, and we were able to get him through it. And just threw everything at him that I know to do, and he's fine. So
Kathy,
we have natural immunity that I think can last for a long time.
Do you wear a mask?
No. Not unless forced to. Not unless I'm on a plane or airport where you're forced to. But most people in Texas now are not wearing masks.
I know. I just came back from there. No, nobody was wearing a mask.
Yeah, but I was one of the first, just kind of walking in the store. Nobody said anything, and just kind of walk in and do my business. I think, well, if they don't want to be close to me, then don't be close to me. I mean, if you're vaccinated, what are you worrying about? So,
Kathy, we only have a few seconds left in this segment. Give me your reaction to the so-called Delta strain. Are you worried about that?
No, I mean, I think there's always going to be another strain. There's going to be something else they're going to release. I think they're going to continue to release new strains, new things. Delta, Lambda, whatever. We have an innate ability to really help our immune system fight these things, and we just really need to be smart about it. We need to all have a nebulizer at home and get a dilute solution of a really nice food-grade hydrogen peroxide, very dilute solution of that, 1 cc and 100 cc's of saline. Nebulize every hour with that. If you think you're getting sick, suck on some zinc acetate lozenges, take ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, vitamin C, vitamin D, quercetin, a lot of these, NAC, a lot of these things that are recognized protocols out there that these frontline doctors have developed, and they do work.
Well, Kathy, I'm going to leave it right there. Sorry for cutting you off. Thanks so much for calling. I appreciate it. Now, if you are suffering from back, shoulder, neck, hip, foot, knee pain, whether you do it because of working out or because of just getting up in the morning and dealing with life, why don't you try something? Order the 3-week Relief Factor Quick Start. It is still discounted to only $19.95. That is less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. Then after that, less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. The doctors who developed Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, each of which are 100% drug-free to deal with pain from a different metabolic pathway. Over 70% of those who order the 3-week Quick Start go on to order more. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
So critical race theory actually is indoctrinating our children to tell them that if you are white, you are an oppressor. You are innately designed to be racist. And if you are black, you are oppressed. In other words, you will never have the opportunities that the white person has. And the little boy or the little girl that's sitting beside you in your classroom is the reason why. This is why it's such a divisive, and in itself, it's completely racist.
Well, it is. I mean, that's what I love about people who scream racism are often guilty of the racism themselves. I mean, this it's the quintessential projection. How can you condemn children who've done nothing wrong? How do you make victims and oppressors out of kids in elementary school?
Well, this is what fired me up. This is what got me initially so upset, is that, you know, I watch my 10-year-old son play football with little boys from every race, from every walk of life, every religion. And I watch them as they help each other up on the field when they get knocked down. I watch them give each other high fives. I watch them do chest bumps, right? They are not thinking, oh, you're black, so I can't touch you, or, oh, you're less than me. Guess what? They've got blacks, whites, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Jews. They're all playing together, and they're all respecting each other, and they're all caring.
Hi, Larry. I'm wondering, what country do I live in? Is this United States of America? I heard last night from Jen Psaki, the spokesperson for Biden administration, that they are going to send people door to door to the unvaccinated people's homes to try to persuade them to get their trial shot. These vaccines aren't even approved by the FDA. And I want to know where my HIPAA law rights are. I thought our medical records were private. You mean to tell me they're going to send people that I don't know and don't know me, but they know my medical record to my doorstep? Are you kidding me, Larry? I say bring them on, because they're going to be rebuked if they come to my front door.
By the end of the week, the United States will be nearing 160 million people fully vaccinated, which the president will touch on today as well, which is critically important as fully vaccinated people are protected against the Delta variant. He will also stress how the administration will continue its effort to work with governors, local leaders, and across the public and private sector to get more Americans vaccinated by making vaccines available in more healthcare settings and respond to hotspots. The president will outline 5 areas his team is focused on to get more Americans vaccinated. 1, targeted community-by-community door-to-door outreach to get remaining Americans vaccinated by
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. This just in. Army plans to make COVID vaccine mandatory for soldiers as early as September 1. According to the Daily Mail, leaked documents show that U.S. Army soldiers may be required to get vaccinated as early as September 1. Around 68% of Army members are vaccinated, 70% of all troops, according to Pentagon Army spokesman. So what happens if you refuse, if you're a soldier? They throw you out of the Army? And Dan from Sweetwater, Texas, has a great point. Dan, thank you so much for calling. I appreciate it.
Hi, Larry.
Hey, Dan.
I just wanted to say, hi, Larry. I'll vote for you 3 times over if I was still living in Cali. But how is it that immigration is letting in over half the people that are testing COVID positive and just sending them out into the country, into our country? How is that?
Dan, great point.
There's no explanation.
No, great point. And now they're going to go door to door for the people who've not been vaccinated while they're allowing all sorts of illegal aliens to come in who've been COVID-19 positive.
Another very active morning out here in La Jolla. Just a short time ago, we witnessed really a massive group being apprehended, and we want to show you that video right now. Take a look from our Fox drone from right here where we were standing a couple of hours ago. In my 4 trips to the border during this surge, this was the biggest single group I've ever seen apprehended at one time. This was
888-971-SAGE. I'm Larry Elder.
This is Hugh Hewitt for townhall.com. Sometime next year, the Supreme Court will decide whether to continue to find the right to abortion in the Constitution or give up on its deeply misguided half-century-long effort to do so. The court will have before it the case of Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization and the constitutionality of a 2018 Mississippi law that banned abortions after the first 15 weeks of pregnancy. The court will also be deciding on whether or not to uphold a poor decision made at the intellectual low ebb of its post-war era. The court made law at Roe v. Wade, and Justice Blackmun's opinion was simply awful in its reasoning. In fact, I would argue the 1973 was the point of origin of the culture wars, because in Roe, the court seized territory reserved for the state legislatures. Will the court let us have peace at the cost of admitting that its ambition to rule was the real spark for the fires long burning? Wisdom, in the express language of the Constitution, counsels it to quit the field. I'm Hugh Hewitt.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Folks, I'm talking to my friend Jenna Ellis, and I apologize, but the conversation has become substantive. Let's go back. What is the moral basis of our Constitution? That's the title of your book.
Yes.
It is really vital that people understand this. Can you make that case in short order?
Yeah, so our Declaration of Independence gives us the worldview statement that our founders unanimously recognize that when governments are abridging and infringing upon our rights that are God-given, then we appeal to the highest source of moral law, which is God himself. He is the personification of truth. And they said unanimously in the Declaration that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They went on to say that governments are instituted among men only to protect and preserve those rights. And so they then gave the mandate to the Constitutional Convention. With the Articles of Confederation, we're not working. The Constitutional Convention derived how can we best implement a system of government whose mandate is to protect and preserve our rights that are God-given, because our rights do not come from government, they come from God. It's the government's job to protect and preserve those rights. That's why we have the First Amendment, and all of our Bill of Rights is actually a bill of protections. Congress, in case you weren't clear that you have a limited role, these are the things and the rights that are God-given that governments most frequently infringe on. So like what we're doing right now, our First Amendment, speaking together about truth, that's freedom of speech, freedom of association, free exercise of religion, those are not given by the government. It is obligated by the Constitution that our government protects those rights.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
that Americans are recognizing that we cannot sit back. We can't say we're comfortable in the four walls of our church. We have to be active participants in civil society. And this whole myth of separation of church and state, by the way, is something that Christians should absolutely not be lied to about, and they should not perpetuate that myth. Thomas Jefferson only meant that the authorities that are established are different. They're separate. That doesn't mean, just like, the family authority is very different from civil government authority. That's all that he meant by that. It doesn't mean that Christians can abdicate our role and responsibility to be moral arbiters of truth within the context of civil society, because what our founders recognize is that the greatest system of government would be predicated on the truth of the eternal, immutable Word of God, which is that truth is self-evident, and that the mandate for the Constitution is that we can only have a government according to the truth of the Word of God. And that's why we are a Christian nation.
And you write about this in your book. I don't remember the title. Tell my audience.
The legal basis for a moral constitution.
The legal basis for a moral constitution. In other words, you don't just say, hey, this is what the Word of God says, because there are people in America who say, I don't care what the Word of God says. I'm not a Christian. The Constitution and our laws and our system of government are, you say, inextricably intertwined with morality. There's no such thing as somehow separating church and state on that level.
Right. And you can make the argument for America being a Christian nation based solely on our founding documents and our Constitution itself.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at Rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
This is, we can talk stories about the deep state, but when I realized the extent of it was when I met somebody in the White House who had the same rank as me, which is Deputy Assistant to the President. There's not a lot of us. There's like 42 in the whole of U.S. government. And I find out that this individual, you're not conscripted to be a DAP, okay? You volunteer to be a politically commissioned officer of the President of the United States. This guy, he volunteered to work in the Trump White House. Utterly and completely detested his boss. And I mean the president. And the idea that you would volunteer for a position of honor, of trust at the highest level of U.S. government, but detest the person elected by 65 million Americans, that is one definition of the deep state, and that's why it's real. That's why you've got to see this movie, The Plot Against the President. You've got to read the book. This is how I got to know that the deep state is a real thing. So I'm not a member of the NSC, but because of the clearances and the job I had, I'd get all the invites to the NSC until McMaster pulled me off the list. Okay, first thing. The National Security Advisor removed me from this.
Was it the same day he pulled Bannon out and all of that? Because he did that to everybody.
It was actually before Steve, I think, got in trouble.
You should be proud of that.
Yes, I'll put that on my resume.
You were actually the top of the list, and as soon as McMaster came in, he's like, I've got to get rid of these five guys.
I can tell you stories about McMaster.
Yeah.
So I'd go to the NSC meetings. These are the highest level policy making meetings in America. I mean, you can have the principals, but they rarely meet the cabinet members. This is the NSC beneath principals.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at Rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Some lawyer hit a little girl.
Former cancer patient Sharon Blackwell was struck by an oncoming vehicle.
Take this into evidence, sir. I need to call my wife.
You've been accused of texting while driving.
Before you take your daughter off life support, give God room to be God.
You're not guaranteed another day, but you have today.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. We've been talking about the newly leaked document showing that U.S. Army soldiers may be required to be vaccinated as early as September the 1st. According to the Army Times, the Department of Army headquarters sent out an order notifying members that a deadline would soon be set pending licensure from the FDA. Turns out that something like 77% of those in the Navy have been vaccinated. The Navy is said to be the most vaccinated branch, with at least 77% of soldiers receiving at least one shot. Representative Thomas Massey says he's been contacted by a number of members of our voluntary military that say they're going to quit if they're forced to take the vaccine. Wonder if that's going to come up the next press conference. Now, I was talking about California and that my father moved us uptown from Pico Union to South Central into a house that's still in the family that is now, according to Zillow, worth $600,000. Wonderful for my sister-in-law and me because we own the house together. Horrible for anybody who dare try to do what my father did. We've had Leo Hanian on a number of times. I've often consulted with him about real estate matters as I decide whether or not I want to run in this election. And he says that the price of a home in California is 50% higher than it would be but for these ridiculous regulations. Many of them have to do with climate change. House comes up for sale, 10, 15, 20 would-be borrowers. Anybody trying to buy a house recently out here knows what I'm talking about. Supply and demand. Limited supply, a lot of demand, price goes up. In a state with all this land. But I've seen so many projects over my years being stopped because of the environmental greenies. There's something called CEQA. It was passed, I think it was in the 70s. California Quality Control Act, which allows virtually anybody to stop any project for almost any reason, even after the project has been approved. I've talked in deciding whether or not I want to run to a number of developers, contractors, and the stories they tell me. One guy told me 20 years ago he had a development project that would have built close to 2,000 homes. Held up in regulation, cut the project down to 1,000 homes, held up in regulations, cut the project down to 500 homes. 20 years later, he told me he was able to build 200. As a result, he's spending almost half of his time in another state that does not have these kinds of restrictions. Years ago, I had a client, hardware store, and he and I were talking, small hardware store, did a lot of stuff online, maybe 6, 7 employees, maybe 8, can't remember the number. All of them were men. And he told me he hired a female. And everything was going fine. She was a competent, good worker. He got a call from Cal OSHA, the California Occupational Safety and Hazard Agency. Safety and Health Agency, I think is what it stands for. And they told him that he had to put a separate bathroom in for this lone female employee. He costed it out. He said it was going to cost him $60,000 based upon the configuration of his store to put another bathroom in. And he pleaded with them. He said, I'm sorry, those are the rules. So he called and called and called and finally talked to another OSHA guy who said, are we off the record? He said, this is OSHA. Employee telling him this. I would advise you to figure out some sort of way of getting rid of her. And so he did. Now, I told that story to a left-wing lawyer. She's a friend. And I had no idea the reaction I got. Otherwise, I wouldn't have told her. I thought there would be some sympathy for this employer and some sympathy for this woman who lost her job because she couldn't just come into the boss and say, look, you got a bunch of slobs here. How about you guys just make sure you clean up after yourself because I don't want to go into a dirty bathroom. And he said there wouldn't have been a problem. She didn't even do that. She went directly to Cal OSHA. Another contractor told me because of the American with Disabilities Act, there are literally people coming in to his restaurant with tape measures, making sure it's properly wheelchair accessed, the bathroom properly wheelchair accessed, and if it's an inch, 2 inches, 1 inch, too high, too low, lawsuit. I've told you many times the story of the mayor of Los Angeles. His name is Eric Garcetti. His father was the DA who decided to move the O.J. Simpson case to downtown. Eric Garcetti, years ago, was debating whether or not to sign a bill to increase the minimum wage, which, by the way, now it's just gone to $15. And so he thought he would invite a bunch of business people in to find out how they felt. Guy called me and said there were 30 of us, Larry. We all came in with our profit and loss statements, all telling him how close our margins of profit were, and that if you jacked up our labor costs, we're going to have to raise prices, which inevitably meant sales fall off. We're going to have to cut hours, or we're going to have to defer hiring decisions that we otherwise would make. And Garcetti, I was told, listened very carefully. And by the way, Garcetti went to school at the London School of Economics. He studied ethnic studies, but you think just by walking by books like Adam Smith, maybe he'd learn something? He stood up, buttoned his coat, and said, well, I think you all can absorb the increase, and signed the bill. A guy who's never even run a lemonade stand, telling these hard-working business people, many of whom are working 60, 70 hours a week, I think you can absorb the cost, and slapped a new cost on it. And you wonder why people are disgusted. 888-971-SAG. We're going to speak to a leader of this recall effort in just a second. Do not leave town.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
All right, now let's move to the so-called bipartisan deal. This is two parts, Eliana. Substantively, it's not a deal. 2 hours later, the president and Nancy Pelosi said whatever they'd agreed to with the bipartisan group of senators wasn't going to pass absent another $1 trillion+ in spending and tax hikes, which means there's no deal. But secondly, Mitch McConnell will not let that get through. No one should have reported that as a bipartisan deal. And I talked about this with John Allen. It's just absolute terrible reporting to call it a bipartisan breakthrough when 2 hours later the president reneges. Agree or disagree?
I think that's right, although it wasn't clear that I was surprised by Biden's move. I wasn't sure that he would land where Pelosi was, and I was surprised to see him say that. I think having spoken to a handful of Republican senators about this, the Republican strategy was to back a more narrow infrastructure bill that contained the popular items and then sort of leave Democrats holding the bag on this really expensive bill. I think it's something they believe they could campaign against Democrats against in the midterm elections. And what happened was essentially the Democrats saying they're putting the goodie bag deal first. And I think there are a lot of things that could happen. That first bill could go nowhere if Manchin and Sinema don't support it. Or that bill could pass and the quote-unquote bipartisan deal on infrastructure, I think it's unlikely to pass after that.
Otherwise, you know, the Republicans are the dumbest group of senators I've ever seen if they agree to this thing. And I mean dumb, and Mitch McConnell is anything but dumb.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
So critical race theory actually is indoctrinating our children to tell them that if you are white, you are an oppressor. You are innately designed to be racist. And if you are Black, you are oppressed. In other words, you will never have the opportunities that the white person has. And the little boy or the little girl that's sitting beside you in your classroom is the reason why. This is why it's such a divisive, and in itself, it's completely racist.
Well, it is. I mean, that's what I love about people who scream racism are often guilty of the racism themselves. I mean, it's the quintessential projection. How can you condemn children who've done nothing wrong? How do you make victims and oppressors out of kids in elementary school?
Well, this is what fired me up. This is what got me initially so upset, is that, I watch my 10-year-old son play football with little boys from every race, from every walk of life, every religion. And I watch them as they help each other up on the field when they get knocked down. I watch them give each other high fives. I watch them do chest bumps, right? They are not thinking, oh, you're Black, so I can't touch you, or, oh, you're less than me. Guess what? They've got Blacks, whites, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Jews. They're all playing together, and they're all respecting each other, and they're all caring for each other. Why would you put such a divisive theory or ideology into a school system?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube.
Thanks for all you do. You're great, Larry. Thank you. Hey, Larry, I just saw a national headline that says you're seriously considering running for governor. I live in California. I've listened to you for years on the radio. I've actually talked to you a couple of times on the radio, and it's been, one of the couple of highlights of my life. I say, seriously, do it. Do it, Larry. Run for governor. You will win.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Well, as you know, I am seriously considering it, but there wouldn't even be a recall election if it weren't for my next guest. She is a manager of what's called Recall California. Born and raised in New England, attended Kent School in Connecticut, graduated from Wheaton in Massachusetts after just 3 years, double major in Asian Studies and International Relations, attended graduate school at American University. Nearly 40-year career in fundraising. She's worked on a bunch of campaigns, maybe over 100, including campaigns for President George Herbert Walker Bush, Bob Dole, Ronald Reagan, Pete Wilson, George W. Bush, Mitt Romney, Jeb Bush. She also set new record for charitable giving, having served as Director of Development for UCLA Medical Services. She's also involved in a charitable group called Angel Force USA. It's a nonprofit that works to raise awareness about suicide, but her latest, perhaps maybe even greatest adventure is Rescue California. Please welcome to the program Ann Dunsmore.
Well, hi, Larry. Thanks for having me on.
Ann, how are you?
Great introduction. I'm good. Getting ready for the big fight.
Well, Ann, you know what they're doing. You know what the opponents are saying. This is all about Trump. It's all about white nationalists who are trying to take over California. To that, you say what?
Well, they've been saying that all along, and his numbers have been going down a rabbit hole. I don't think it's a message that resonates. In fact, I think you would remember when Christine Pelosi just a couple months ago went to the California Democrat Convention and said, if you guys stick with the Trumpism, racism, and Republican power grab message, you're going to lose. And I agree with her. And so did a lot of people at that convention. But his team has decided to continue with that message. I call it the dome zone mentality. They hear themselves and nothing else. So I invite them to continue down that road because he will, I think we can all go get lawn chairs and sit back and watch him win this election for us.
And the primary reason that Newsom is facing a recall election on September 14 is what?
It started pre-COVID, and those issues today that started it are still the strongest ones that we have. It's homelessness, his lack of solutions on homelessness, which were the worst in the nation. It's crime, which is, as you know, the new numbers are starting to come out, and it's horrifying. And you've got recall elections in San Francisco and in Los Angeles of the district attorneys there that are progressives and have virtually unlocked the doors to the prisons and allow, I think, 2/3, Gavin Newsom has released 2/3 of Californians' felon population in prison. And so, that was an issue before. And then the third is the cost of living in California. We appreciated, I'm saying that tongue in cheek, a gas tax increase on July 1st. We will have that increase methodically every year, if not more than that. And he could have stopped that with his executive power grab. I don't know how the Republicans can have a Republican power grab. We don't. We're a one-party state. So, bottom line, those are the top three issues that I believe are going to that I know started the movement, and that I believe will close out the movement with his being removed from office.
I'm talking to Ann Dunsmore. She's campaign manager for Rescue California. Now let's talk about how he handled the COVID-19 response. Of course, we know that there he is kicking back at the French Laundry, Ann, with the very people that made the mandates that they were violating, not wearing masks, not social distancing, while telling everybody else to do the same thing. And by the way, Ann, I hear that the tab taxpayers picked up was not $12,000, which I think was widely reported. I heard it was 3 times that.
Possibly. I wasn't there, thankfully, but I will also tell you the really big tab that cost us was that the party boy for that was Jason Kenney, who handles a lot of the people, no big surprise, that are getting no-bid contracts without legislative approval because of Gavin Newsom has executive power to sign off on things like that, deals with major donors who were represented at that party that ended up also providing tons of dough to the charity that pays Mrs. Newsom a salary. Mm-hmm. So there's all kinds of pay-to-play going on in broad daylight right in front of our noses with no apology, and we're footing that bill as well. So it pales in comparison and there was that nice mask scandal as well, where he went ahead and signed off on purchasing masks, put in a $500,000 deposit. We never saw the masks, and it was the guy that owned the company was a major donor to his campaign.
Mm-hmm. And also, Gavin Newsom has his own kids who still enjoyed in-school private education while depriving kids here another year of education. Mm-hmm. We've seen the numbers. 75% of black kids in California cannot read at state levels of proficiency. Nearly 50% of the kids in public schools here in California cannot read at state levels of proficiency. We're spending more money on education every single year and getting poor returns.
That's right. And not only that, we're in the lowest tenth of education, the quality of education back to the quality of life and cost of living in the entire country. So we don't have a lot to brag about. We're at the top of all the bad lists, and we're at the bottom of all the good lists, and it's really sad. And I'm glad you're speaking so clearly on it, because that's key. He's not going to do well in we've already seen some polling that shows that 25% of the Democrats are willing to replace him. And that's not a good number for him, and it's a great number for us. And it's coming out of Los Angeles, which is your base, too. So he is weak in Southern California because of exactly the things you're talking about. By the way, Larry, let's talk about what the United Teachers of Los Angeles called his original back-to-school plan. They called it propagating structural racism. We didn't make that up. They said that. So I'm wondering where the teachers really are, where that supporting him is.
Well, Ann, we're going to take a break. I'm talking to Ann Dunsmore. She is the campaign manager of Rescue California. And we come back, I'm going to talk to you about homelessness, crime, cost of living, and about the $30 billion that are missing from the unemployment fund. And please don't go away. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. We're talking about the recall election that the California Governor Gavin Newsom is facing on September the 14th. Do not leave town.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
School board chair is a woman named Brenda Sheridan, and she's not backing down at all. In fact, indeed, they're doubling down on the school board. She said tonight, this is how she responded apparently on Tuesday. She said, quote, "Tonight, the Loudoun County School Board meeting was interrupted by those who wish to use the public comment period to disrupt our work and disrespect each other." She said, "Dog whistle politics will not delay our work. We will not back down from fighting for the rights of our students and continuing our focus on equity."
Okay, Mike,
Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. What is their work? Because for the past year and a half, it took us fighting to get our students to even get back into a hybrid schedule. They couldn't even focus on our education. What is their work exactly?
Yeah.
Their work exactly is to listen to their parents, who actually are the constituents and the voices of their children. The school board is not the voice of my child.
Well, and I'd like to also ask you about two fundamental aspects of her statement. Number one, how did you interrupt those who are using the public comment period? How did you disrupt their work, and how did you disrespect each other?
Actually, we didn't disrespect each other. Actually, we started singing the Star Spangled Banner when they got up.
No wonder they were triggered. No wonder.
Right?
Yeah. You can't have a flag.
God forbid that we honor our country. God forbid we honor our flag.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
218 out with him. Headed for the house. He's got a hostage.
You believe in God, Chip. Why does a kid die? Drug dealer get off scot-free.
Well, the only answer to that is there isn't a God.
You have a choice. You can either let the darkness overtake you, or you can be a bearer of the light.
So just think of it as calling for backup.
Officer down, officer down.
You're the one God's called to be a shepherd.
Keeper, do you know who I am?
You are the author?
I am.
I don't know you.
Keeper, it's your son.
Hurry it up! Time is short.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Amanda Milius, is the deep state real?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I sat in the room with it, and the scary thing is, and this is the thing that I'm always harping about, which is like I feel like we know the careers are going to be deep state, right? We know
these are the non-political appointees, the career
99% of
bureaucrats.
Yeah, and the thing that I was shocked about, I talked about this the other day, is that I'd get in the room with only political appointees, and I'd be like, okay, we're amongst friends, right? How are we going to get this done? How are we going to make sure we execute the White House's agenda here? And they would look at you like you had three heads, and they'd be like, oh no, we're going to have to like figure out a way to like tap down their expectations because we can't go to NATO and tell them to pay their fair share.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Anthony out in Visalia, California. God answered my prayers because you're talking about running for governor. Brother, I promise you run for governor and you let me know what I can do to help here in the Central Valley, and I will campaign for you. I will make phone calls for you. I will knock doors for you. I'll be a bodyguard for you. Whatever the sage needs, I got you, man. Just love what you do, and you would be a godsend to this state.
Hey, Larry, this is Jeff from Oregon. I'd like to congratulate you in advance and say that Governor Elder, that has a very nice ring, and hope you decide to join the race and enter and win it. So that would be great for the state of California.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. I'm talking to the woman without whom this recall election wouldn't even be taking place. She is Ann Dunsmore, the campaign manager of Rescue California. She is neutral in the race in terms of who she'd like to see replace Gavin Newsom, should Gavin Newsom be recalled. And I mentioned that you grew up, were raised in New England. I went to college at Brown. What brought you to...
There you go.
Yeah, what brought you to California?
Right down the street.
What brought you to California?
Well, I lived here when I was quite small, and I have a huge family in the Santa Barbara area. And then our house burned down, actually, in a fire in the 60s. And we moved back to New York. And then when I finished with college, I went to work for George H.W. Bush for president. And when that campaign, when he dropped out, I just moved back here with, some friends, and the rest is history, pretty much. Mm-hmm. So... yeah.
And
That's what brought me out here.
Before you came on, I was talking about my father who came here after the war. He was in charge of cooking for the so-called colored soldiers in World War II. He was stationed on Guam. And so he comes to California because he had been here when he was a Pullman porter and thought it was seemed more fair and certainly sunnier than in Athens, Georgia, where he was raised. He worked 2 full-time jobs cleaning toilets. I don't know if you remember an old bread company called Barbara Ann Bread. He worked there cleaning toilets, and also Nabisco brand bread cleaning 2 full-time jobs. Stay-at-home wife, my mother, raising 3 boys. And we were born in Pico Union, but my dad moved us, quote, uptown, close quote, to South Central. At the time, it was considered to be uptown, in a house that right now, I just checked with Zillow, is worth $600,000. Wonderful for me because it's still in the family. But my point is, and nobody, if they worked 3 jobs, could have done what my dad did, have a stay-at-home wife, raise 3 boys, given the cost of living in California right now. That dream is gone for anybody at that level.
Yep. Absolutely, no question about it, and it's going to hurt all across the board. Already has. It's not partisan lines. It's nothing. It's all Californians are really struggling with it.
I mentioned the unemployment scandal. $30 billion either paid to prisoners who applied illegally for unemployment benefits or criminals outside of the country. And how does that happen?
I don't know, and he has failed to answer that question. And as recently as a week ago, the portal crashed again. So there's 2 crimes being committed here, Larry. Number one, they're throwing money at people like Scott Peterson and money that's actually being recycled onto the streets in the form of guns and drugs and other criminal activity. But more than that, you have people who are still waiting to get their benefits. And yet these other people have received fraudulently, quote unquote, their benefits. Mm-hmm. And this is federal money. So this isn't just California taxpayers that are being defrauded here or whose money is being used irresponsibly. This is people all across the country. And by the way, that money wasn't just distributed to inmates in California prisons. That money was distributed to inmates all across the country. So we are, a little, this negligence is actually responsible for, probably a little bit of the spike of the crime rates. Now, just ironically, the woman who is his appointee that was put in charge of all of this, or was in charge of this when it started happening, got nominated as a number 2 or number 3 at Labor under Biden. So that problem is going to become magnified here shortly, because clearly she's not capable of managing that kind of money. Certainly not at a federal level.
That's called and failing upward.
Failing up, and that's what we do. We get them out of here and put them in a position of bigger responsibility where they can cause more problems. So that problem that you're talking about, the $30 billion, it started out as $400 million, and then with no solution to it, has climbed in some people's estimation to $35 billion. So I use that to say to people, listen, if this is one of the largest corporations and annual budgets in the world, $250 billion. If the CEO of a company that large had frittered away that kind of money, $200 million is a small price to pay, because he's making mistakes like that with B's in front of it, billions of dollars, not millions.
And we're going to take another break, and please don't go. When we come back, I want to talk to you about crime and homelessness and the cost of living, and also fires. So, Ann, don't go away. Well, summer's here, and Nina is killing it with soda weight loss. Looks amazing. Tell people, Nina, exactly what you're doing. She there? I think she is. There she is.
I have been on the soda weight loss plan for 6 weeks now, and I have lost over 18 pounds. Yes, you heard it, 18 pounds. The soda experience has been amazing. The plan is easy to follow, and my coach helps keep me accountable. Overall, I am really happy with this program. I was afraid I'd be hungry all the time, but I'm not at all.
Just go to sodaweightloss.com, read the over 4,600 business reviews. Sodaweightloss.com, sodaweightloss.com.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
And it's fascinating to read it, that, yes, we who supported Donald Trump were into blood and soil ethno-nationalism. It's amazing. He would certainly not be able to account for me and for the vast number of people that, relatively speaking for an individual that I know, some of the finest, most open human beings. As I said for much of my life, if you are black and you feel a little unloved, just go to a Trump rally or go to any conservative or any Republican event. You will get more love than you will the rest of the year all put together. But we're blood and soil ethno-nationalists. All right, so I've read to you that part. There's some more here that is very important, though, actually, in this article. The man's name is Hamid. I assume he is, I'm not assume, he is of Middle East extraction. Shadi Hamid, Hamid, America Without God. That is the name of the piece. So obviously anything like that I read, especially if it's in the Atlantic. And he observes correctly, though the United States wasn't founded as a Christian nation, Christianity was always intertwined with America's self-definition. Without it, Americans, conservatives and liberals alike, no longer have a common culture.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Some lawyer hit a little girl.
community is left in shock as former cancer patient Sharon Blackwell was struck by an oncoming vehicle.
Take this into evidence, sir.
I need to call my wife.
You've been accused of texting while driving.
We don't make an example out of this guy, the public will crucify us.
Before you take your daughter off life support, give God room to be God.
You're not guaranteed another day, but you have today.
Get back or I'll shoot you.
No one's left inside for the pastor and his 2 daughters.
If you run, I'll shoot your family. Nobody cares whether I live or die.
Hi, Larry. Calling from Ventura. I just saw in the paper there, and I heard on the radio yesterday that you might be running for governor, trying to take Newsom's spot. I am just thrilled to death, and if there's anything I can do here in Ventura for you, I will certainly do it. And, putting up posters or dropping flyers on doorsteps, whatever. But they said in the paper you were 69 years old. I couldn't believe it. I thought you were only about 50. Boy, that floored me. The other thing is, Larry, if Newsom says anything bad about you, you right away could accuse him of racism. That's what they do. Use a trick out of their playbook. Thanks, Larry, and good luck. I hope you do this. I really do. I'm praying for you.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I'm talking to the campaign manager of Rescue California, Ann Dunsmore. Ann, you were talking about your house burned down. I'm doing homework on things like the water crisis here in California, the price of water, brownouts, this force feeding of renewables that are now making California less efficient in energy and all that. And I look at the topography of Arizona. It's very similar to that of California. Why don't they have fire seasons there?
Probably because they have forest management.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, the water thing, as always in the history of California, is kind of scandalous. And I think one of the things most people, and again, this is a pay-to-play thing if I've ever seen it, his largest individual donor is a family that owns a series of companies that uses more water than all of the people in Los Angeles and San Francisco combined on an annual basis. And, they are also major shareholders of one of the largest water banks in the state. This is not the kind of thing that you want to hear about when people already in Northern California are having their water rationed or told that they can't use water, and that we are facing a drought of sort of famine-level proportions when you have the farmers only planting 40-50% of capacity in anticipation of the drought. So this is a really, really big deal. It's hard to fathom. It's hard to fathom. Again, it's kind of that dome mentality, Larry, where you just don't think you're going to suffer any consequences for hurting people. Mm-hmm. And don't even think about the fact that you're hurting people. You're just taking money hand over fist and calling it a day. A lot of people are going to suffer as a result.
I've been reading a lot.
And by the way, what about that report from his own department where he was 690% off on what he told people he had done, the number of acres that he had mitigated on with fire prevention measures.
Yeah,
I don't know.
He had a bad ruler. Ann Dunsmore is my guest, Rescue California campaign manager. Ann, what can people do right now? What are you advising people to do now? You succeeded in getting this thing on the ballot. You succeeded in getting a recall election. It's going to be on September 14th. It's a two-step deal. First, do you want this guy out? If you want this guy out, who should replace him? You've done that. What should people do now?
They need to volunteer. There's two organizations that have worked really hard on this. The original petitioners is an amazing group of activists. It's Recall Gavin 2020. They started the movement. I came on board, then I split off and started Rescue California to do the conventional sort of air game. I would volunteer. We have less than 2 months. It's like going on a diet. Just keep your eye on the ball, because this is a one-time opportunity to turn California around that I don't think we're going to see again for a very long time. So volunteer and contribute. Recall Gavin 2020, rescuecalifornia.org, and that's rescuecalifornia spelled out.org. It's not going to take a lot, because we're going to have a lot of good people out there making sure that people understand bad on homeless, bad on crime, bad on quality of life and cost of living, has not delivered, has deceived people, has not told the truth. Go show the world, and especially California, that kind of governance will not fly here or anywhere ever again. And we want people who understand what a moral compass is, and that man does not have one.
And the point, again, Ann, is all of this is null and void if the man is not recalled. So just the fact that we have an election does not solve the problem. He's got to go.
He's got to go. You got to vote yes on question number 1, and then whoever gets the largest number of votes on who's going to replace him automatically takes office within 7 to 10 days of the certification. People need to understand there is no primary. It's one ballot. Vote yes to recall, and then pick the person you would like to turn California around and be honest and have a true north, and have that true north be representing the people of California who are speaking loud and strong about their unhappiness with Gavin Newsom. So yes, 2 questions. September 14th, vote, volunteer, and contribute.
And are his numbers rising? I've been hearing that his poll numbers are rising. Is that true?
Oh, not in approval. Mm-hmm. They're rising on disapproval, and they're rising even within his own party. I mean, you've noticed that he's suing his own appointee for Secretary of State because he forgot to put in Democrat next to his name. And so a lot of missteps on his part. We just got a poll out of the field that shows that we can win by a significant margin. I think he's seen these numbers. Otherwise, he wouldn't have moved the election to September 14th when he could have had it in December. And I think that what it's boiling down to is the deception on any number of issues, and there's so many, Larry. It's not anything like I've ever seen. Usually, we refer to them as silver bullets. You ask a bunch of push questions. Right now, we're dead even. 46% of the people want the recall, and 50% don't want the recall. However, that's after $10 million worth of advertising 2 weeks prior to our going in the field with the poll, where he boasted about himself and made himself look pretty. So at this point, we're very empowered. We're very optimistic, and he's in a lot of trouble.
And give us those websites. Again, we only have a few seconds left. Give us those 2 websites again.
Yeah, it's Recall Gavin 2020, and it's rescuecalifornia.org.
Recall Gavin 2020, rescuecalifornia.org. Ann Dunsmore,
Absolutely.
campaign manager of Rescue California. Ann, great work. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, and good luck to you.
You got it. Now, I've been telling you about Relief Factor for 6, 7 years? The docs who formulated Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, each of which are 100% drug-free, to deal with pain from a different metabolic pathway. That may be very well why so many people find such wonderful relief. Now, if you've got pain, I'm talking about back, shoulder, neck, hip, foot, knee pain from exercise or just getting older, consider the 3-week Quick Start. Discounted to only $19.95. That is less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. After that, we're talking about less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384.
Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
And it's fascinating to read it. That, yes, we who supported Donald Trump were into blood and soil ethno-nationalism. It's amazing. He would certainly not be able to account for me and for the vast number of people that, relatively speaking for an individual that I know, some of the finest, most open human beings. As I said for much of my life, if you are black and you feel a little unloved, just go to a Trump rally or go to any conservative or any Republican event. You will get more love than you will the rest of the year all put together. But we're...
Hey, Larry, thanks for taking the message. I was wondering why the Democrats only lying about the defunding the police money part and saying that it's the Republicans that are actually not wanting to fund the police. And they're not lying about, the no cash bail. They're not saying Republicans are the ones that were talking about no cash bail. Why can't they lie about that, too? I was thinking maybe it's because, Democrats don't know that there's a rise of crime in Democratic states and cities, because CNN and other fake news media outlets reported the actual facts and data that there was a crime rise and that there is a crime rise in those states and cities. But they were watching CNN, and what they saw there is that last year there were peaceful protests and that the cops are bad and that there's being no cash bail anymore on criminals in Democratic states. And they don't know how to put together the fact that if you take away cash bail, then you're going to have a rise of crime.
You are suggesting that they can put 2 and 2 together and come up with 4. They have no clue that when you reduce the odds of a criminal being caught, convicted, and incarcerated, crime tends to go up. We're going to talk about a father who blasted the school board for pushing critical race theory. He says your job is to teach math and science. Ronnie is in Dallas, Texas. Ronnie, thank you so much for holding on. I appreciate it.
Hello.
Hey, Ronnie.
Oh, my goodness. I'm on the air.
You are on the air, sir.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. I had an incident that happened to me in a bar with a number of other people, and the subject was abortion. I know I'm not on the subject matter, but I thought I would give an interview and then talk to you later. But anyhow, and the subject matter rolled on, and the people that I was talking to, they were pro-choice. 2 girls, 2 boys, and then a man to my left. And I was telling them my story about how abortion got closer to me and closer to me, because it was always just out there. Wasn't me. It didn't happen to me. But I had a great niece that had a baby early. She was a preemie, or he. It was born 2 pounds and 2 ounces. Well, that baby could be held in your palm of your hand, fully formed, alive. Mm-hmm. And I told them that the morality of it is it has to fall somewhere. If I'm balancing a pen on the table and holding it straight up with my finger and I let go, the pen's going to fall left or right. Let's just say that's the only 2 ways it can fall. It's going to fall left or right. It's either going to be my own problems. My question is, how do I address these people when they say to me, but you're taking away my choice? Because that's what the man next to me said.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the girl said. Matter of fact, the girl both said, have you ever had a baby? Well, of course, that was a track question. And have you ever, could you ever have children? And of course, that's a track question.
We'll have to leave it there, Ronnie. Choice in terminating a life that's not yours. I'm Larry Elder.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
After an hour, I just raised my hand, and there's me, the guy with the accent, saying, "Ladies, gentlemen, can I remind you what the president said yesterday about destroying the caliphate when he was in Warsaw? Can I remind you what the president said about Russia's threat to Europe?" And it's like, who do these people think they are? They just think that they don't matter, and the will of the people and who they elected is irrelevant, Amanda.
No, it's the exact same thing that I saw. The best line that I got is when I got into it with somebody, because I was like, well, I was trying to speak bureaucrat, and I was like, okay, fine. Like, I got it. You need orders to come from the exact person that you report to, and I got to play the little math game and the whole thing. I was like, we did that. Why aren't you doing this? Why are you not following this chain of command that you so worship? And they were like, well, I don't work for the secretary. I don't work for the president. I work for the State Department. And I was like, what is this?
Hang on. Somebody actually said that to you?
Yes, they fully said that in all
work for the
totally
State
earnestly.
Department.
And I was like, what do you think this is? Like a sovereign state that's just on these like 6 city blocks? Like you think that this is like its own nation and it's determined by the will of like bureaucrat X? It was the craziest thing. And I was like, the fact that they even were willing, because usually they pretend to kiss the behind of the secretary in phrase, but they don't. And it was just amazing because they were just out with it. I mean, this stuff happened all the time. I mean, you know that. It was and like I said, the one that really pissed me off were the fact that there was political appointees that did the same thing, that they thought their job was to clean up after the embarrassment of the campaign promises or the things the president said.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Get back or I'll shoot you.
No one's left inside for the pastor and his 2 daughters.
If you run, I'll shoot your family. Nobody cares whether I live or die. It's bad.
I'm not going to stand around and be a part of it anymore. Give me the gun.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
The image of seeing parents dragged out of a school board meeting being arrested by the police, really, really ugly. And I've seen a lot of ugly comments online about the police officers, which I hate because I'm real pro-police, and the police are sort of put in a really untenable situation. Can you give me your overview as a mom with kids that are in elementary, middle, and high school in Loudoun County, Virginia? Give me your big takeaway over what happened and what you see happening moving forward in Loudoun County, Virginia.
This is really prevalent all across our country. What's happening is they're trying to silence us. Anyone that differs in opinion needs to be silenced in their opinion.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, There's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
And it's fascinating to read it. That, yes, we who supported Donald Trump were into blood and soil ethno-nationalism. It's amazing. He would certainly not be able to account for me and for the vast number of people that, relatively speaking for an individual that I know, some of the finest, most open human beings. As I said for much of my life, if you are black and you feel a little unloved, just go to a Trump rally or go to any conservative or any Republican event. You will get more love than you will the rest of the year all put together. But we're blood and soil ethno-nationalists. All right, so I've read to you that part. There's some more here that is very important, though, actually, in this article. The man's name is Hamid. I assume he is, he is of Middle East extraction. Shadi Hamid, Hamid. America Without God, that is the name of the piece. So obviously anything like that I read, especially if it's in the Atlantic. And he observes correctly, though the United States wasn't founded as a Christian nation, Christianity was always intertwined with America's self-definition. Without it, Americans, conservatives and liberals alike, no longer have a common culture.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Some lawyer hit a little girl.
The community is left in shock as former cancer patient Sharon Blackwell was struck by an oncoming vehicle.
Take this into evidence, sir.
I need to call my wife.
You've been accused of texting while driving.
We don't make an example out of this guy, the public will crucify us.
Before you take your daughter off life support, give God room to be God.
You're not guaranteed another day.
Triple 8-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com. Studio going to be on the Hannity Show with Leo Terrell this evening near the top of the hour, probably around 6:15 p.m. Pacific time, discussing the hundreds of looters and rioters that have been released in New York. The fact that Representative James Clyburn, who once called voter ID voter suppression, now says, I was always in favor of voter ID. And a growing number of people are beginning to blame Democrats for the rising crime in American cities all across the country. The San Francisco police lieutenant, his name is Tracy McCray, had a couple things to say about politicians for the rise of crime.
Hey, they still under $950. Like I said before, you get a citation, right? There are no consequences to hold people accountable because excuses are what is given out by certain politicians. In a sense, I feel like that character Scar from The Lion King, I'm surrounded by idiots because they say the most idiotic things to justify bad behavior. And so chaos runs supreme here.
Lieutenant, I want to read this statement from Target. I don't know if I've ever heard a statement like this from an American company. Maybe you have. For more than a month, we've been experiencing a significant alarming rise in theft and security incidents at our San Francisco stores, similar to reports from other retailers in the area. With the safety of our guests, team members, and communities as our top priority, we've temporarily reduced our operating hours in 6 San Francisco stores. Has that ever happened before?
No, that's not a business model plan. You're in business to make a profit, and now you're reducing hours, lessening your profits, because people are coming to your stores and cleaning you out. Why would you stay open? Who would do that in their right mind?
LAPD Chief Michael Moore.
Well, I think that the systems of our society have all been broken down, all been greatly impacted by this pandemic. We know what works in Los Angeles. We've led the country in crime reduction over this past decade. We've shown that cops count, that police matter, that community engagement is the leading aspect of crime prevention, and that crime reduction also is tied to effective policing, identifying those that are involved in the violence, bringing them before the justice system, and holding them accountable. All of that in this last year has been terribly and devastatingly impacted. We've seen every part of society broken down, disengaged, isolated. And what we see from that is the results not only here in Los Angeles, but across the country. What we need to do moving forward is remember what works, the strategies that have proven effective. Just a year and a half ago, this city hailed a 10th year of crime reduction, fewer than 300 homicides over the course of the year, and record low, since going back to the 60s, to find the level of crime and violence that we experience. So we've seen it work. We know it can work. We've got to roll our sleeves up and get everyone involved and moving forward, getting back to our interventionists in the streets, getting back to us communicating, talking, seeing each other, and the community also not giving up, not stepping back, recognizing the police are here, that we're here to help and support you, that we're here in a manner that's going to bring safety to our communities, and let's all work together in that engagement.
On the other hand, this Black Lives Matter activist in Chicago defended the looting and the Magnificent Mile. Listen to this form of reparations.
I don't care if somebody decides to loot a Gucci or a Macy's or a Nike, because that makes sure that that person eats. That makes sure that that person has clothes. That's reparations. That is reparations. Anything they want to take it, because these businesses have insurance. They're going to get their money back. My people aren't getting anything.
Now, is it reparations when you steal jewelry off of a man and kill him? Here is the widow of a murder victim.
You see what's happening in New York City. You never believed this could happen to your family, never happened to Milton, yet you know that right now we're seeing this rise in crime in cities across the country, in New York City. Why do you think it's happening?
I think many people are struggling due to COVID, due to unemployment rates. Even though we have jobs available, people don't want to work. They rather just collect unemployment. And I feel the government needs to put a stop to people making claims that have the ability to work. Go out and work for your money. Go out and work to buy your own things. Don't steal. And don't kill just to get those things. Work for them just like my husband did.
Oakland Police Chief Ronnie Armstrong not happy after City Council voted to cut millions of dollars away from his budget.
Saturday night, I went out to a scene of a young man that lost his life. And a lady yelled out the window, "Do something about it." I'll start off today by saying that I'm challenged by the decisions that were made on Thursday around the budget for the city of Oakland, particularly for the Oakland Police Department. But today we find ourselves in a crisis. We find ourselves reeling from a weekend of violence where we've seen 4 homicides over a 3-day period. It now has us currently at 65 homicides for the year. It's a 90% increase compared to last year. Our shootings are up over 70% this year. Our robberies are up 11% this year. It's been 1,300 robberies in this city already this year. Our carjackings are up nearly 88%. So we see clearly that crime is out of control in the city of Oakland, and our response was for less police resources. I want to address a comment that was made by one of our city leaders during these budget meetings. It was referred to as a bump in the road, a speed bump, that we would go through a period where there would be speed bumps and there would be challenges and things may not go right, but we would be okay. Well, for me, those speed bumps are 65 lives so far this year. Victims who have suffered at the hands of violence, whether it's shootings, robberies, carjackings, sexual assaults. All of these crimes are not speed bumps. These are people. Far too often in these meetings, we are talking about numbers. We are talking about money and cost. I don't know what the cost of a life is, but I know not having resources makes our city less safe. It concerns me that we would ever consider that to be a bump in the road. That when you look at this screen and you see these are true people. These are people who lost their lives in this city. The violence that impacts our community every day. When I go to scenes and I meet with mothers and family members, they're not talking about numbers. They're talking about their children. This is my god sister. That means something to me. Saturday night, I went out to a scene of a young man that lost his life. And a lady yelled out the window, "Do something about it." Without the resources, it makes it challenging to make Oakland safe. And more families find themselves dealing with trauma, find themselves dealing with putting the pieces together. When the yellow tape is gone and when the streets are cleaned up, there is still hurt and pain and tragedy in our community. I hope that we can put politics aside and put public safety first. Put people's lives first before political agendas. I'm not a politician. My job is to keep the city of Oakland safe. That's what I'm here for.
We come back. Biden met with the Chicago mayor at the airport, and they discussed violence. Came after more than 100 people were shot and killed. 100 people were shot, 19 killed over the 4th of July weekend in Chicago. The city's most violent weekend so far this year. I'm Larry Elder.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
The Wall Street Journal editorial. Politicians in Washington renege on their bipartisan promises all the time. But what are they to make of a deal in which one side admits it's pulling a bait and switch from the start? That was the astonishing news Thursday as President Biden and Speaker Nancy Pelosi endorsed a bipartisan Senate infrastructure deal, even as they said the price of their support is getting the rest of their agenda too. There's the picture if you're watching on our YouTube channel. 2 hours later, he said he wouldn't sign the infrastructure bill unless the Senate also passes the other $3 trillion or more he has proposed in tax increases and multiple new entitlement programs. The Journal adds most politicians at least wait a decent interval to pull a double cross, but with Mrs. Pelosi and Mr. Biden are trying to prevent a revolt on the left. So they are now holding a bipartisan deal hostage to the left's demand. That is political blackmail aimed at Democrats like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, who are part of the bipartisan Senate Gang of 10. Unless they sign on to all of the progressive tax and spend agenda, they won't get their bipartisan deal, and Mr. Biden and progressives will blame them for the failure. I think Mitch McConnell should say, no mas, we are not doing this, unless and until we get a commitment that Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden signed that this is it. We're not going to give you half now, and for a hamburger today, we will gladly pay you another $1 trillion in tax hikes Tuesday. That's a non-starter. That's a non-starter. And I don't know what the 5 bipartisan senators say, but they ought to come out together at the Hill and say, that's not what we agreed to.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Instead, I think there was a massive story recently on whether or not Donald Trump had his pants on backwards or forwards, or the cicada that fell on Joe Biden's neck. These were the major stories of the last couple days.
It's crazy. And I mean, we've gotten to a point where 79% of independents, this was midway through Trump's presidency, of independents, these are not Republicans, said that they believe that the press intentionally makes up fake stories and intentionally reports them. So the good news is people recognize it. Edelman Trust Barometer gauges the trust of different institutions. They found the media is at their lowest point of trust. So the American people are wise to this. They do see the headlines. They are smart. But when you get to a point where big media colludes with big tech, that's where it becomes highly problematic. There was a poll out recently that I think it was 1 in 6 Biden voters would have changed their vote had they heard about the Hunter Biden story. You talk about influencing an election. There's simply no doubt that Twitter and big media and big tech altogether influenced an election.
Yeah, and it was the most interfered with election in American history. And I mean, the fact you could suppress the New York Post story because we don't like what they have to say, even though it ended up being totally true.
Yeah.
And then, that was another lie, that this was somehow Russian intelligence.
Right.
Remember? And by the way, not only that, last year we went through 2 impeachments. Right. We went through one in the Ukraine and the other one was ridiculous. And we had to go the whole phone call thing. Then a couple months later, we had to deal with the whole virus and the lab leak. And if the Democrats actually wanted to permanently sever the country, they're doing a great job.
Yes, they are. But the point to Russian disinformation, this is where it becomes so laughable that anyone with a brain cell can see through the antics of the press.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Shalom, Sage. This is Guy from Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'm watching this C-SPAN 3, and it's Robert Smith, Marquette University. He's a history professor, I believe. So I believe he's a doctor. But he's talking about these voter laws, and it's just so painful that this, a black man, doctor at a university, professor, I'm presuming because they didn't say he's a professor, talking about voter ID laws and how they are against black. And one of his explanations is that if you have, well, first he talks about the financial and like how hard it is in his area for people to get the proper ID. And then he says if you have all the proper ID, your grandfather didn't. So like that's his, that's his main thrust as to why voter is so racial, is because if you have it, your grandfather didn't. And it's painful.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. As you know, Mike Lindell has a passion to help everybody get the best sleep of his or her life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike created the new Giza Dream bed sheets. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me. Crucial for my busy schedule, which may get even busier. Mike found the world's best cotton called Giza. It's ultra soft, breathable, extremely durable. Mike's Giza sheets come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. First night you sleep on a Giza sheet, you'll never want to sleep on anything else. Giza Dream sheets come in a variety of sizes and colors, and Mike is making a special offer for my listeners. You'll receive 2-for-1 low price plus free shipping. So go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener square, and use promo code Larry. There you're going to find not only this amazing offer, but also deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including but not limited to the MyPillow mattress topper, the MyPillow towel sets, and so much more. So call 1-800-890-1843. Be sure and use promo code Larry. That's 1-800-1843. Or go to mypillow.com. Again, make sure you use promo code Larry. Chicago. Police say that gun violence increasing this year. 82 people shot over the holiday weekend. Actually, that number is closer to 90. And that number was 68 in 2019. 2020, 80. Now we're talking about over 180 people dying, gun violence nationwide, July 4. Recall this reporter who dared to suggest from Newsmax that the mayor is losing control of her city.
Mayor Lightfoot, what I think...
Introduce yourself, sir?
Yes.
I don't think I'm familiar with you.
William Kelly, I'm with Newsmax. What I think everybody knows, but you didn't mention, I don't think any of your speakers here today mentioned it, is the reason why the hotels are empty, the reason why the storefronts are closed, is because of fear of violent crime.
No,
there was, well,
sir,
if I may ask my question, it's a simple question.
I will respond.
There's a woman, a pregnant woman was shot at a hotel across the street from here last week at 4 in the afternoon. You know, of course, we have this horrific Juneteenth, 50-some shootings. A young Hispanic couple pulled from their car and shot execution style. This video has gone viral. I don't think we've had any arrests in this case yet. A tourist came to Chicago and was stabbed in the back and murdered on Juneteenth here in the city of Chicago. Our police chief referred to the location of the stabbing as a homeless camp. Last time, I was born and raised in Chicago. I always considered it to be the financial district of Chicago, not a homeless camp.
Do you have a question, sir?
Yeah. So my question is, do you feel personally responsible for the your rhetoric, your heated rhetoric is responsible for this off-the-charts violent crime in the city of Chicago?
So.
Several questions. Oh, no, I have a follow-up. No, I only asked one question.
Okay. So,
white reporter in the house.
So you know what? That's not appropriate, sir. If you look around you, sir, you're surrounded by white reporters. So I really ask you to do you feel responsible? Sir. Let me answer the question that you've already asked. So I don't know where you're from. I know what magazine you're from, and I know what your conservative viewpoints are. But on almost every question that you ask, you had the facts wrong. So here's what I will say in answer to about the 15 questions that you just asked. No one thinks that a single act of violence is ever acceptable, least of all me. The hotels are where they are here in Chicago, as they are across the country because of economic shutdown related to COVID-19. So that the premise of your very first question is fundamentally flawed and wrong. And you can have your opinion on it, but I got the facts. And what we're here to celebrate is the reopening of our city, the great enthusiasm that our residents and our tourists have. If you look at the actual facts, sir, what you're going to find is that on our weekends, when people are engaging in leisure travel, our hotels are seeing unprecedented levels of occupancy, in some instances higher than pre-pandemic. I think that speaks to the nature of our city and the value that people place in being here in the city. Another data point that maybe you're not aware of, but I will share with you. Over the course of this pandemic, we've had 32 plus relocations of corporate businesses to the city of Chicago, businesses that could have relocated anywhere but chose Chicago. Why? Because we have a great economy. We have a diversity of our economy. We have a great workforce, and they're happy to be here because of the values that they find in the city of Chicago. So the premise of your question, which is it's chaos everywhere, and the fact of the matter is, sir, which you also didn't point out, but I will, so we get this straight, is that we're actually seeing a decline in homicides and shootings.
Really? 100 people shot, 19 killed over the 4th of July weekend. City's most violent weekend this year.
Yes, sir. Sir. Okay.
Here's my question. Here's my follow-up question.
No. Let him ask his follow-up question so he doesn't claim that somehow we're being biased and slighting the guy from Newsmax. Please, sir, it's 6:30 going on 7. Ask your follow-up question.
Well, my follow-up question is simply this. Many residents in Chicago feel that you've lost control of the city. Now it appears as though you've lost control of the Chicago City Council. Do you owe an apology to the victims of violent crime, the thousands of unsolved shootings and murders and stabbings and random stabbings in the downtown and the south side and the north side and the west side? Do you owe these people any apology?
So once again, sir, I ask you to get your facts right. Crime is not out of control in our city. In fact, crime is on the decline. All of our major indices showed the decline in crime, and our homicides and our shootings year over year are down. That's a fact, sir. And you, sir, I was polite and allowed you to spew your rhetoric, which is offensive to me and others, but I'm trying to be polite and professional and answer your question. But if you want to write your own narrative and irrelevant to what I'm going to say and what the facts are, then we'll just move on to the next reporter. Heather Sharon.
National polling showing crime is rising as the top issue in the minds of American voters, but they've got the facts wrong. I'm Larry Elder.
Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
And it's fascinating to read it, that, yes, we who supported Donald Trump were into blood and soil ethno-nationalism. It's amazing. He would certainly not be able to account for me and for the vast number of people that, relatively speaking for an individual that I know, some of the finest, most open human beings. As I said for much of my life, if you are black and you feel a little unloved, just go to a Trump rally or go to any conservative or any Republican event. You will get more love than you will the rest of the year all put together. But we're blood and soil ethno-nationalists. All right, so I've read to you that part. There's some more here that is very important, though, actually, in this article. The man's name is Hamid. I assume he is, not assume, he is of Middle East extraction. Shadi Hamid, Hamid, America Without God. That is the name of the piece. So obviously anything like that I read, especially if it's in the Atlantic. And he observes correctly, though the United States wasn't founded as a Christian nation, Christianity was always intertwined with America's self-definition. Without it, Americans, conservatives and liberals alike, no longer have a common culture.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Some lawyer hit a little girl.
The community is left in shock as former cancer patient Sharon Blackwell was struck by an oncoming vehicle.
Take this into evidence, sir. I need to call my wife.
You've been accused of texting while driving.
If we don't make an example out of this guy, the public will crucify us.
Before you take your daughter off life support, give God room to be God.
You're not guaranteed another day, but you have today.
Get back or I'll shoot you.
Only one's left inside for the pastor and his two daughters.
If you run, I'll shoot your family. Nobody cares whether I live or die. It's bad.
I'm not going to stand around and be a part of it anymore. Give me the gun.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Larry, just like I don't listen to MSNBC hee-haw, I also don't really care to watch any professional or major league sports. So if you're able to, could you give me the ratings of the NBA Finals when they come out? I have a feeling they'll probably be half as high as they were last year. But are they going to make the excuse because LeBron James wasn't in the finals instead of the fact that LeBron James might have been one of the reasons why they were driven from not watch the finals? You know, but hopefully you can give me those final numbers when they come out.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. Will do. I'll stay on top of that. Now, this is a father named Ian Rice speaking at a Michigan school board for pushing critical race theory. Somehow he says your job is to teach math and science. Shocking.
My name is Ian Rice. I've got two children here at the Caledonia School District. It's very apparent here by all of the parents that have spoken that this board and the school district is failing. More importantly, I came here to talk about critical race theory. This theory was never meant to be brought into grade schools, high schools, at all. It's actually taught in the collegiate atmosphere, and more importantly, the legal portion of the collegiate atmosphere, to see different laws through the lens of race, from an ethics and an ethical standpoint, right? Not for grade schools and high schoolers. The problem with bringing it to high school and grade school level is that we don't have the educators to properly teach these kids. Instead, they're using it as their own agenda to indoctrinate the kids to hate each other. And whether you believe that to be true or not, the reality is that's what's happening. Critical race theory is teaching that white people are bad. That's not true. That would teach my daughter that her mother is evil. You already have an educator within your staff that has pulled my daughter aside and said, well, you're a minority, so you know better than to engage in certain things.
Wow.
Whoa. When I was brought to the school's attention, nothing happened to the educator. Instead, my daughter was brought in, and she was ridiculed. So my question is now, with critical race theory being brought in, what is your criteria to educate the educators? And who are you to educate my children, or any of our children, in life issues? That's our job.
Yes.
Your job is to teach them math and science. Our job is to teach them about life. I believe racial issues and tensions across the U.S. are nowhere near what they used to be decades ago. Do we have a long way to go? Sure. Do we still have individuals out there that need to be taught? Absolutely. But I believe the people here don't look at me as a black man. They look at me as a man standing in front of you addressing the issue that we all are very passionate about.
Critical race theory argues that inequalities because of racism and Jim Crow. Here's what Tom Sowell said about some of this.
Inequality within the United States. Basic economics, again, I'm quoting you, Tom. Although people in the top income brackets and the bottom income brackets, the rich and the poor, as they are often called, may be discussed as if they were different classes of people, often they are in fact the same people at different stages of their lives. Close quote.
Yes.
So getting worked up about income inequality is pointless, ill-informed?
But, yes, and sometimes it's simply a propaganda trick, depending on who's doing it. I read Piketty's stuff.
Piketty, Thomas Piketty, the French economist who published a book this year called Capitalism.
Right, and he's a star around the world for doing so. And he talks about how the top 10% are separate from the rest of us, and they are able to do all sorts of nefarious things. And then since then, I've gone and done a little research, and it turns out that 56% of all American households will be in the top 10% at some point or other in their lives, usually when they're older.
Wow. Over half?
And
over half will be in the top. All right.
Yes, and actually, and when you get down to the top 1%, it's even more incredible. Of all the people in the top 1% in the course of a decade, the majority, the great majority, are there 1 year. Only 13% are there 2 years. And so we're talking about people who have a spike in income in 1 year for some reason or other. They inherited something.
They sell their company.
They have assets accumulated over the years, and they sell them in that 1 year. I mean, in the years I haven't checked, but I wouldn't be surprised if I hit my income peak when I sold my house on the Stanford campus, and have never been near that since. No, and of course, it was all absorbed in paying for another house elsewhere. So
welcome to California. Right. So,
We'll get back to that in a second. Are you still with Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile? Switching to Pure Talk could save your family over $800 a year. You can keep your phone, keep your number, or get huge discounts on the latest iPhones and Androids. I got a new iPhone SE. The service is fantastic. We're talking about unlimited talk, text, and 6 gigs of data, all for just $30 a month. If you go over, they don't charge you. There's a reason Pure Talk is the highest rated wireless company by Consumer Affairs. Whether the preferred wireless partner of AMAC, it is time to start saving money. So from your cell phone, dial pound 250 and say Larry Elder, and save an additional $50 off your first month. That's pound 250, say Larry Elder, pound 250, and say Larry Elder.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
They're not journalists, and they're really in the business of personal destruction.
That's right. Look, there are definitely a set of reporters in the press corps, and I could probably count them on one hand, maybe two, who are good reporters. And I've had one of them came up and, in a hushed tone said to me on the tarmac, I come from the old school of journalism, and kind of recognize that it has changed for the worse. And then you have people, and you're right to call them activists, like Caitlin Collins, like Jim Acosta, who are activists. And I said that much from the podium. I said, Caitlin said to me, hey, why didn't you call on me? And I yelled back, I don't call an activist, because at a certain point, we've got to call out their activism, not engage in that kind of activism, because it's destructive when you are shouted down by a Playboy reporter in the back of the room at the end of each briefing. And where are the other reporters?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Surprise.
Sharon and I.
Sharon and you what?
Things just happened.
My girlfriend and my best friend.
You got 30 days to grow up, son.
Nathan Hannigan, it is good to have you home.
Nona, it's Nathan.
Well, you don't mind my giving her your room, do you?
Really though, thanks for thinking of me for this position.
I thought about you first.
Come on, growing up, I had a huge crush on you.
There are things that we all need to change about ourselves, but we can't blame God because He helps us change.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
School board chair is a woman named Brenda Sheridan, and she's not backing down at all. In fact, indeed, they're doubling down on the school board. She said tonight, this is how she responded apparently on Tuesday. She said, quote, "Tonight, the Loudoun County School Board meeting was interrupted by those who wish to use the public comment period to disrupt our work and disrespect each other." She said, "Dog whistle politics will not delay our work. We will not back down from fighting for the rights of our students and continuing our focus on equity." Two-part
Okay, Mike,
Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. What is their work? Because for the past year and a half, it took us fighting to get our students to even get back into a hybrid schedule. They couldn't even focus on our education. What is their work exactly?
Yeah.
Their work exactly is to listen to their parents.
I just want you to know that we have a congressional baseball game every year. In the very beginning, I used to be a center fielder, and my Walter Mitty dream. Anyway, it's a long story. But my kids only remember two things that ever happened to me in my career. My boys, and they've met kings and queens. They've gone to other countries. But I played in the second congressional baseball game at the old stadium, the old Washington Stadium.
No, he didn't.
I hit one off the
game wasn't at the old Washington Stadium.
Right center field wall, bounced.
No, you didn't.
Off the wall. I think it's 368, or I don't know what it is exactly now. But
actually, you went 0-2 that day.
Off the wall, and I'm rounding anyway. To make a long story short, my kids remember that. All the rest. And guess what? Only thing I remember, too. Yeah, I thought, what could have been? It could have been. But anyway. And I started thinking as I was coming over here, why is it that Joe Biden is the first in his family ever to go to a university? Why is it that my wife, who's sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family to ever go to college?
Why am I the first Kinnick in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university? Why is Gladys the first woman in her family in 1,000 generations? Was it because they were weak? Those people who could work 8 hours underground and then come up and play football? Weak?
My ancestors who worked in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania and come up after 12 hours and play football for 4 hours? No, it's not because they weren't as smart. It's not because they didn't work as hard. It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand.
Does anybody really think that they didn't get what we had because they didn't have the talent or the strength or the endurance or the commitment? Of course not. It was because there was no platform upon which they could stand.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. If you're a homeowner, you need to consider a mortgage refinance while rates are still low. I mean it. Not a joke, not a joke. You could miss out on hundreds of dollars in monthly savings. Do not let that happen. Call American Financing, America's home for home loans, and take advantage of a free, no-obligation mortgage review. There's no pressure, no upfront or hidden fees. They're not like that. This is a company that's in it for you, doing whatever it takes to save you up to $1,000 a month without resetting your loan. Because at American Financing, they can write any term 10 years and over. You may even postpone 2 mortgage payments. So don't put a refinance off any longer. Pre-qualify for free by calling 866-886-2026. That's 866-886-2026. Or visit AmericanFinancing.net. That's AmericanFinancing.net. American Financing, NMLS 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org. As you've heard, I have been giving some strong consideration to running for governor of California in this recall election. Haven't made up my mind just yet. Want to hear from you. I have a email address where you can drop me a line and tell me what you think, whether I should or shouldn't, what you think the issues might be if I do. Larry A. Elder at gmail.com. Larry A. Elder at gmail.com. Drop me a line and let me know what you think. Linda is in the Bay Area in California. Linda, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
I am so excited. I can hardly stand it. When I heard that you were considering running for governor, I was elated. I have a sign to recall Gavin Newsom in my window. It's been there for months. Give me your sign. I'll put it up above his sign. I can help you. I really want to help you. I have a lot of demographics in me. I'm Jewish, Cuban, Israeli American. I have 3 half Ethiopian children. I'm a certified Spanish interpreter. Use me, please.
Linda, what in your view is the number one reason you want him recalled?
The schools. Mm-hmm. I have grandchildren, 6 grandchildren, 4 of them in Berkeley schools. He is setting such a terrible example for children's behavior as well as children's education. Mm-hmm. It's driving grandma insane.
Mm-hmm. Linda, meanwhile, he shut down schools in California, but his own kids continue to have in-school private education.
I was very aware of that, and I was absolutely furious. I have 2 14-year-olds that were freshmen this year, and their freshman year was stolen from them. And he obviously is a hypocrite. I mean, I live not too far from the French Laundry, and boy, my blood was boiling over that. Who can afford that place? Mm-hmm. And for him to be such a phony, such a fake. And I have to throw this in, but I mean, come on. The family he comes from, Nancy Pelosi, he's her nephew. Mm-hmm. Sorry, this regime has to end.
Well, Linda, thank you so much for your support, for your enthusiasm. I'm hearing from a lot of people just like you who are making complaints just like yours, whether it's the crime, which is up year to year substantially as we are defunding the police, or at least moving lots of money out of the police departments. I'm in L.A., and $150 million have been cut from the police budget and moved it over to, quote, youth programs, close quote. This is always fascinating to me that Democrats want to spend money on things like youth programs. The reason for the need for the youth programs is because of the breakdown of the family that Democrat policies have caused. So they cause the breakdown of the family, and then they spend money to deal with the symptoms of the breakdown of the family as opposed to the root causes that they're very fond of when it comes to things like why people are coming up on the borders. Kamala Harris was in Guatemala. She said to talk about root causes. But root causes of crime, they don't want to talk about it. Root causes of crappy schools, they don't want to talk about that. Root causes of why people are dropping out at 50% in some of our inner city schools, they don't want to talk about that. Root causes of why we have my old high school, according to an article in the LA Times a couple of years ago, 3%, I think I mentioned this before, 3% of kids can do math at grade level. 3%. Who sends their kid to a school where only 3% of kids can do math at grade level if the parent has an option out? Who wants to give you an option out? The dastardly Republicans. Now, the doctors who designed Relief Factor believe our bodies are designed to heal. And therefore, they selected the 4 best ingredients, each of which are 100% drug-free, to deal with pain from a different metabolic pathway. Each of the 4 ingredients deals with pain from a different pathway. That's right. That may be very well why so many people find such wonderful relief. So if you've got back, shoulder, neck, hip, foot, knee pain, whether from exercise or just getting up in the morning and dealing with Democrats, I suggest you try the 3-week Relief Factor Quick Start. Still discounted to only $19.95. That is less than $1 a day to see if we can get you out of pain. After that, less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day for you to stay out of pain. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384.
This is Hugh Hewitt for townhall.com. Sometime next year, the Supreme Court will decide whether to continue to find the right to abortion in the Constitution or give up on its deeply misguided half-century-long effort to do so. The court will have before it the case of Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization and the constitutionality of a 2018 Mississippi law that banned abortions after the first 15 weeks of pregnancy. The court will also be deciding on whether or not to uphold a poor decision made at the intellectual low ebb of its post-war era. The court made law at Roe v. Wade, and Justice Blackmun's opinion was simply awful in its reasoning. In fact, I would argue the 1973 was the point of origin of the culture wars, because in Roe, the court seized territory reserved for the state legislatures. Will the court let us have peace at the cost of admitting that its ambition to rule was the real spark for the fires long burning? Wisdom, in the express language of the Constitution, counsels it to quit the field. I'm Hugh Hewitt.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Folks, I'm talking to my friend Jenna Ellis, and I apologize, but the conversation has become substantive. Let's go back. What is the moral basis of our Constitution? That's the title of your book.
Yes.
It is really vital that people understand this. Can you make that case in short order?
Yeah, so our Declaration of Independence gives us the worldview statement that our founders unanimously recognize that when governments are abridging and infringing upon our rights that are God-given, then we appeal to the highest source of moral law, which is God himself. He is the personification of truth. And they said unanimously in the Declaration that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They went on to say that governments are instituted among men only to protect and preserve those rights. And so they then
I just want you to know that we have a congressional baseball game every year. In the very beginning, I used to be a center fielder, and my Walter Mitty dream. Anyway, it's a long story. But, my kids only remember two things that ever happened to me in my career, my boys. And they've met kings and queens. They've gone to other countries. But I played in the second congressional baseball game at the old stadium, the old Washington Stadium. And I hit one off the right center field wall, bounced off the wall. I think it's 368, or I don't know what it is exactly now. But anyway, 0-2.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. Larry Elder, ReliefFactor.com studio. Who lies about stuff like that? He went 0 for 2. He said it was played at RFK Stadium. It wasn't. He said he hit 368 feet. He didn't hit it anywhere because he went 0 for 2.
Anyway, 0-2.
Well, I suppose if you lie about your civil rights record, even after the New York Times fact checks it and says it's not true and says that his aides have been trying to tell him to stop lying and he kept doing it anyway. If you lie about trying to visit Nelson Mandela when he was in prison in apartheid Africa and saying that Andy Young was with you, the former United Nations ambassador, they asked Andy Young, he says, I have no idea what Joe's talking about. Lie about the NAACP endorsing you in all your elections. I guess you'll lie about hitting a home run. Now, the zip poll question I left you with, do you believe critical race theory is racist? Once again, these are one of the rare instances in which every single person said yes. That's hundreds of people responding to this poll. Every single one of them called critical race theory racist. Here's the one for tonight. We'll go over this tomorrow. Do you think Joe Biden has dementia? Yes or no? In order to participate, you must be a member of the Zip community. Go to your app store, download the Zip app by searching on the Zip Poll USA, and be sure and use my code SAGE, S-A-G-E.
I just want you to know that we have a congressional baseball game every year. In the very beginning, I used to be a center fielder, and my Walter Mitty dream. Anyway, it's a long story. But my kids only remember two things that ever happened to me in my career, my boys. And they've met kings and queens. They've gone to other countries. But I played in the second congressional baseball game at the old stadium. The old
dumb as a bag of hair.
I am Larry Elder. We got a country to save. See you tomorrow.